Hi, everyone. So the full title of my course is The Rise of the Modern Woman, from Bronte to Woolf. And in it, we are going to focus on the idea of what was called, or what has been since called, the modern woman, as that was defined in the beginning of the 20th century, and how that is reflected in the literature leading up to that time and the literature of that time. So we're really looking at the ideals of womanhood as they were perceived by Victorian times and modern times. I'd like to think that rather than just reflecting those ideals, the idea of the modern woman is also shaped by the literature of the time. That's maybe optimistic. The voice of women's writing may not have been as far-reaching culturally as I might like to imagine that it was. But still, even as the audience for women's lit was growing at the time, because of the rise of women's education and a social class that allowed for more leisure time for women to read. So women writers were gaining wider and wider audiences, and those voices were beginning to be heard. So in this course, we're going to focus on just two, obviously very famous writers, Charlotte Bronte and Virginia Woolf, and only 3 novels. But all 3 of these novels reflect changes in the ways that women perceive themselves and perceive their opportunities. So we're starting with another big fat novel, Jane Eyre, which I know that many of you have probably already read long ago or recently, but I would like to revisit that. Jane is still very much in the context of the Victorian woman. It's written in 1847. But Jane is an example of a woman, a very young woman, who questions her role, rebels within the system, even as she is pretty deeply limited, not only by her sex, but also by her social class. But in this sort of heroine, we see the seeds of possibility for women who insist on taking charge of their own educations and their social situations, even without any access to wealth or power. She's got nothing, but she still is is rebelling against this. Now, in the Woolf novels that we're going to read, 2 novels from the 20s, and their protagonists are examples of more mature women who also embody the roles that Victorian women were expected and socialized to play. But they are sort of the last of their breeds in ways that Woolf implies is somewhat hopeful. The younger women in the novels in these novels are the ones who are rejecting these roles, even as they're respecting the older women who embody those Victorian roles. And so the younger women are demanding different and more varied options. And so those are both really exciting novels from the 1920s. It's To the Lighthouse and Mrs. Dalloway. Fantastic books. And we're also going to read some of Woolf's essays on her hopes for women's social and artistic evolution, most notably her really famous and groundbreaking essay A Room of One's Own, and her concrete argument about why there were no women writers before her, women writers and artists are so few before her. As a hint, it's not because there were no creative and talented women. So she is exploring the lack of opportunities and sort of dismantling that system. So I hope you will reread some of these with me and read them with me. They're really culturally exciting texts. Thanks.
Great, thank you.